It may not look all that different, but the updated Hyundai Tucson has seen some significant changes. The diesel engine has been dropped in favor of a turbo petrol hybrid, and pricing has gone up, but so has the standard specification level. So stay tuned. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe and ring the bell to keep up to date with all of my reviews. Let's check it out, shall we? There are price increases across the entire range for the Hyundai Tucson this time around, and it is a complex lineup of models. So stay tuned. The pricing that you'll see on your screen popping up for the different variants and derivatives is before on-road costs, so not a drive-away price. You'll need to go to the Hyundai website if you want to find out what the drive-away price is for you where you live. Now, there are 17 different takes on this theme, which is excessive. There's a lot of different variations that you can pick from in this lineup. Part of that comes down to the fact that you've got 3 different variants available: the Tucson, the Elite, and the top spec Premium, which replaces the Highlander. And then there's also different powertrain options. There's 3 different powertrain options: a petrol non-turbo front-wheel drive model, a turbo petrol with front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and a turbo petrol hybrid with front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And then there's the N-Line pack, which adds sporty exterior styling and a different interior as well. I'll put pricing for it all as we go through on your screen so you can see for yourself the different prices that you have to consider. Now, the entry-level version, Tucson it's called, and it starts just under $40,000. It now gets LED headlights. It didn't have them before, so thank goodness for that. You get bigger 18-inch wheels. There's keyless entry and push-button start, a new 12.3-inch touchscreen media system, new interior finishing as well, and a few extra features which make it feel a bit more special than it did before. Up from there is the Elite grade. Now, there are so many different versions of the Elite grade: turbo petrol, non-turbo petrol, hybrid, and the N-Line models. So it's a very, very complex range of just Elite models, and they add extra features that you will appreciate. Still gets 18s and LEDs, and on the inside, it gets leather accented interior trim, heated front seats, and a few extra features that do make it feel just a bit more special than the entry-level version. And at the top of the range is that Premium grade. It gets all the stuff that you can possibly get in a Tucson, including things like a blind spot view monitor system and also a surround view camera as well. So I reckon that it does stack up pretty well in terms of value for money, but there are some really good alternatives. Let's talk about them now. If you're looking for an SUV like this and you want it to be hybrid, well, I still think that the Toyota RAV4 is the standout choice for most people's needs because it has real-world efficiency on its side. It's got tried and tested hybrid technology. It's now a hybrid-only lineup, so if you are looking for something different, it might not suit your needs anymore, but it is still a really fantastic vehicle, really practical on the inside, heaps of space, a big boot, and like I said, real-world efficiency and access to the Toyota network of dealerships around Australia, which is unparalleled by any other brand. Now, if you are looking for a diesel option, well, those are thinning out pretty quickly, but the Kia Sportage still has a diesel available, and it has a hybrid, and it has a petrol as well, and a turbo petrol too. So there's plenty of choices in the Kia Sportage lineup, and it's also a very practical option. If you are looking for a mid-size SUV with plenty of space and a big boot, it could be a really, really good choice for you as well. And if you're ready to step just a little bit further into the electrification zone, then maybe you could go and have a look at the BYD Sea Lion 6. It's a plug-in hybrid with about 80 kilometers of EV driving range capability. It's very, very nice to drive, very easy to live with, got plenty of tech, and it starts at around the midpoint of this model range. So it could be a really good choice for you if you're on a budget too. Tell me which one you would pick in the comments. If you didn't know that this was the updated facelifted version of the Tucson, you might not be able to pick the changes because they are pretty modest. There is some differentiation to the front end design, so the front bumper and also the front grille has changed a little bit, but in profile it's still a very design-led look to this 4.6 meter-ish SUV. So it's the sort of size of vehicle that you might pick if you've got 1 or 2 youngsters, or maybe you just like a car of this size. I think that it's very nicely proportioned. Some people really don't like the look of this Tucson generation though. Maybe a little bit too busy, lots of sharp edges as well. Now, there have been a couple of changes at the back. You also now get a different wiper, which is hidden up underneath the rear spoiler there. It's bigger, so it's got a better sweep across that rear windscreen, and obviously it's got a hybrid badge and a slightly different lower bumper section as well. Now, to open the boot, this is a high grade one, so it gets an electric tailgate. Look, let's just have a look in the boot and see what we are dealing with. You can see for yourself, it is a pretty sizable space when it comes to the cargo capacity in here, and there are some really nice elements to this rear end design. So you've got quick release levers for folding down those back seats if you need to, shopping bag hooks like so. There's a couple of tie down points if you have one of those cargo nets. There's also a 12-volt port in the back here, an LED light as well. And underneath the boot floor, even in this hybrid model, you get a spare wheel. It's a space saver in the hybrid, a full-size alloy spare wheel in the non-hybrid models. So it could be a really good choice for you if you live in the bush and you know you are prone to getting flat tires. You can still get a hybrid version of this car with a spare wheel, which is nice to see, isn't it? There have been some pretty significant changes to the interior of this updated Hyundai Tucson. In fact, there's more change inside than there is on the outside, and I reckon that it looks fairly fantastic, to be honest. I love this new steering wheel design with the 4-dot logo, which is actually Morse code for the letter H, in case you're wondering. Now, this one is the N-line model, so it gets the perforated leather elements to the steering wheel, the red stitching on the steering wheel. There's also some nice red stitching across the top of the dashboard and on the seats as well, which are finished in a suede and leather design. They look absolutely fantastic. There's even a little N logo on the seat. They are nice and sporty and supportive. You get that red theme on the doors as well. And it is a pretty nice cabin design, I have to say. Now, there's also a new screen array in front of the driver. So you've got a 12.3-inch digital display in the high-grade versions of this vehicle. And you've also got a 12.3-inch touchscreen media system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And you also get a sat-nav system built in, as you can see for yourself there. Now, the screen itself is a pretty neat piece of tech. There's quite a lot of really nice design to this screen. This one also has connected services as well, so you can go online and keep an eye on what the weather might be like over the next 7 days, which is kind of neat, or just check what's going to happen for the rest of the day. And those connected services also include an SOS call button, so if you're in a crash, you can call emergency services and it'll geolocate to tell where you are, which is actually pretty handy technology, I reckon. There's obviously AM, FM and digital radio, as well as your smartphone mirroring technology. On this screen, you can also keep an eye on your hybrid settings. So you can keep an eye on your battery state of charge and your fuel consumption and that sort of thing. I'll tell you the fuel consumption that I saw across a mix of driving later on. But it is good to see that there's plenty of tech and elements to this screen that you can play with. Now, on this driver info screen, there's also a few different modes that you can dive through. There's also terrain modes for the all-wheel drive models, snow, mud and sand, which is interesting to have in case you need to go off the beaten path. And if you're wondering, down here is where your gear selector is. So it's right near your right knee. And yes, you have to shift up to go into drive and down to go into reverse. And the park button is on the end of that stalk. You've also got your park brake there. And if you ever get a flat battery, that's your 12-volt battery reset button, because it doesn't have a traditional 12-volt battery, this hybrid model. Yes, you've also got right side indicator stalk and a left side headlight and wiper stalk. You've also got paddle shifters, and on the hybrid models, the paddle shifters actually work to adjust your regen braking when you're not driving in sport mode. Also new for this redesigned cabin is this 6.6-inch screen down here, which is an interesting thing to have added because existing models had, well, more traditional buttons and dials, which were a bit simpler to use. This is still a touch screen, so it's kind of maybe not as easy to use in some situations, but it also will show up fingerprints, which I don't love. Now you've also got dual zone climate control as well, and I'll just turn it off so it's not as noisy, and an array of buttons there as well with a tuning knob and also a volume knob as well. Now down here you've got a decent sized storage section, which actually could fit a small handbag or maybe a shopping trip worth of bread and milk or something like that. And back here you'll find your drive mode controller there, and as you can see here, this is a little status bar for the wireless charger, which is a standard fit item across all models. I love that. Now you've also got a pair of cup holders here and a decent size center console bin. Yes, that is the key in there. It looks like the Hyundai badge, which is kind of neat. And high grade versions also get this entry controller thing, so you can adjust this passenger seat to be more comfortable or more roomy for anyone in the back. And speaking of which, let's jump in the back now, shall we? Righto, so here's an interesting fact for you. When you're at your next Hyundai pub trivia event, the version of the Tucson that we get in Australia is bigger than what other markets get because it's got a longer wheelbase. And what that means is that we get more legroom in our Tucson than other markets get. And yes, there's plenty of legroom. Look at that. I've got heaps of legroom, a heap of footroom as well, so I can move my feet in and out there and no hassles whatsoever. And I'm just about 6 feet tall, and I've got enough headroom. Anyone really tall might find that vehicles with the big panoramic glass roof might be a little bit tight, but I think that it is a pretty comfortable space. Now, it's also got a fair few great features in the back here. You've got directional air vents. You've also got a couple of USB-C ports down there. There's also some map pockets on the seat backs. There's bottle holders in the doors. Of course, you've got ISOFIX points in the window seats and 3 top tether points as well. And there's a flip-down armrest in here with a pair of cup holders as well. It is a practical car. It is going to be big enough for a family of 3, 4 or 5. I would say yes, you can fit 3 adults in the back if you need to. That transmission tunnel doesn't interrupt the space too much, and I reckon that it is a spacious and likable cabin. What do you think? So like I said, there are 3 different powertrains available in the Hyundai Tucson lineup. The entry-level model is a 2-litre non-turbocharged petrol 4-cylinder engine. It's a pretty basic engine, comes with a 6-speed automatic, and it's front-wheel drive only. Up from there is the 1.6-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It does have a fair bit more power and torque. It comes with a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, which isn't my favourite transmission, and it's now available with front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And then there's the turbo petrol hybrid model, which is this one here. It's a 1.6 litre as well, but it adds an electric motor into its 6-speed automatic transmission, so you can actually feel it shifting gears in EV mode, which is kind of cool. And it has the choice of front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive as well. And I'll tell you, it's a pretty interesting powertrain when it comes to how it drives. So let's go do that now, shall we? That beeping, bonging technology that will tell you if it thinks a speed sign has changed or the zone that you're driving in has changed, and that is the chime that it gives off when it thinks that you're speeding in that zone. It thinks that it's a school zone. It's school holidays, so it's not. But there's been a big fix for this updated version of the Tucson. All you need to do is hold your finger or your thumb on the mute button for a long period of time, like 5 seconds, and it will turn off all the audible warnings for the system. All right, so the speed sign thing sorted. So what about the powertrain? Well, it's obviously the other big talking point here. This 1.6 litre turbo petrol electric powertrain. Yeah, it's a fairly big mouthful. It does have a hugely powerful output to it. It is quick, there is no doubt about it. Now, I'm not in the speedy mode right now. I'm in eco mode because that's what this car is more about than performance, I would say. And it is heavier than the non-hybrid turbo petrol versions of this car. So if you do just want the most performance oriented version, well, there's the turbo petrol without the hybrid power element to it, which might be a better choice for you. But if you are more interested in saving a bit of fuel and also doing your bit for the environment, then maybe the hybrid would be a better choice. And it is a pretty decent choice, I would say. At lower speeds, the electric motor does a pretty good job at just pushing you away from a standstill, and it works really nicely hand in hand with this turbo petrol engine. Now, like I said before, it does have the electric motor integrated into the transmission. So if you're driving in EV mode, it'll tell you on the screen if you're in EV mode, if you can't tell. Otherwise, it's relatively silent, if the road's a good surface, that is. And look, it does jump between petrol and electric, and it'll shift gears in EV mode. So that's kind of weird. It's sort of strange to get used to the fact that it will upshift when you're driving in electric mode. It's kind of peculiar. You don't get that in a Toyota RAV4, for instance, and that's why it maybe feels a little bit different, because it's got a different type of transmission. It's a 6-speed auto, not a dual clutch, and it does do a pretty good job as far as I can tell so far. It doesn't really feel like it's showing any shortcomings. It's pretty quick to react, and it seems to be pretty smooth in terms of the way that it behaves when you're getting on and off the throttle as well, which is what these cars do more often than not, right? Now today I have experienced this car across a mix of different scenarios, including on the freeway, in some urban traffic snarls, and out here in the bush as well. And it's proving itself to be a pretty competent powertrain in a mix of different scenarios. Now, also, it is a hybrid. It does have a regen braking system as part of this hybrid powertrain, and in fact it's got configurable regen braking, so you can set it in 4 different levels to suit your tastes when it comes to the regen braking, which will ultimately try and replenish the battery as much as it possibly can when you take your foot off the accelerator. So if it's in its most assertive mode, it doesn't necessarily do the full single pedal driving thing, but it does pull up with a fair bit more assertiveness than if you are in one of the more lenient regen driving modes. And when it comes to the other elements of the drive experience, look, the ride is maybe just a little bit sharper than I recalled it being. It has stepped up in terms of wheel size on the base grade at least, and still you do have pretty decent large alloy wheels with relatively low profile tires as well. But it's not uncomfortable, I wouldn't say, just maybe a little bit sharper over some bumps and lumps than I was probably expecting it to be. It is an SUV after all, and some of the SUVs I've driven in recent times have had a bit more cushiness to the ride to them. And then when it comes to the steering, it's got a nice progressive action to it. It's predictable and easy to manage in a mix of different situations. In urban driving before, it was perfectly fine. On the open road, it's perfectly fine too. So in summary, there is no doubt that this hybrid powertrain is a welcome addition to the Tucson range, but is it efficient? Let's talk about that now. All right, so on your screen, you'll see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for the hybrid versions of this SUV. And yes, it's the same whether you choose the front wheel drive or the all-wheel drive model, doesn't matter. They're equally as efficient on paper as each other. And look, that isn't necessarily as much of a wow moment in terms of the fuel consumption figure compared to a RAV4 or something like that, which is below 5 litres per 100 on paper at least. And in terms of the real world driving return that I've seen today across this mix of driving, a couple of 100 Ks covered so far, you'll see what I saw on your screen now. And I think that is very good. If you can achieve that on a real world day-to-day basis, I think it'll tick the box for you. There's no doubt about that. Now, also, I'll tell you what the non-turbocharged petrol front-wheel drive model is said to use. That number's on your screen now. And also the turbocharged petrol with the front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. There is a bit of a difference between those two numbers. So, what do you think about that? I think that it's pretty good in terms of the efficiency, in terms of the drive experience. Yeah, Tucson hybrid, not bad at all. And geez, I bloody love the fact that they've figured out a way to fix the bing bong tech. Good on you, Hyundai. The Hyundai Tucson maintains its 5-star ANCAP safety rating from a few years ago, but it has seen some improvements to the standard safety specification and technology on offer. So the forward collision warning system now also picks up on two-wheeled motorcycle vehicles, and it's also got junction assistance and head-on collision prevention as well. Now, there's auto emergency braking as part of that, obviously. You've got lane keeping assistance, emergency lane keeping, there's a blind spot monitoring system, rear cross traffic alert, a reversing camera, front and rear parking sensors. That's all standard. And there's other systems like a safe exit assist function, so it'll stop you from opening your door into oncoming traffic and that sort of thing. And if you choose one of the higher grade versions, you can get it with a surround view camera and a blind spot view monitor as well. There's other features here, including connected services. So if you're in an accident, it can call emergency services for you if you're unresponsive, which is really good technology. And when it comes to airbag coverage, there's dual front, front side, front center airbag, and also curtain coverage as well. Hyundai Australia offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty for its model range. If you choose one of the hybrid versions of the Tucson, you get an 8-year, 160,000 kilometre warranty for the high voltage battery pack. Now, when it comes to servicing, there's a lifetime cap price servicing for the different versions of the Hyundai Tucson. And I'm going to put some pricing and intervals up on your screen so you can see for yourself the 2-litre petrol model, and then also the 1.6-litre turbo petrol, and then also the hybrid version as well. So look, the pricing might be sneaking up a little bit in terms of the costs, but I still think that it's good to see that you've got the option of prepaying if you wish. You can prepay in a 3, 4 or 5-year block, or you can just pay as you go if you want to do that instead. And when it comes to roadside assist, every time you go to Hyundai to service it, they will top up your roadside assistance as well. Nice. Yes, the prices have gone up, but I think that this is a more compelling option than it already was because, well, there's been increases to the standard equipment. This petrol-electric hybrid powertrain, even though it's not the diesel, is still a very likable option. And now that you can turn off that beeping bonging technology just by holding down a button on the steering wheel, that gets the big thumbs up from me. Tell me what you think about it in the comments section below. Would you choose a Tucson? Would you go for the hybrid? Or would you choose one of the other powertrains? Or would you choose something completely different? I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe and ring the bell to keep up to date with all of my reviews. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.